What's good, y'all? Thank y'all so much for tuning in to a second episode of Rich Off Passion. This topic here is one that I really wanted to touch on, like ASAP. When I was sitting down coming up with the various topics I wanted to cover for each episode, this one was top of mind. And this is simply because right now we're living in a very entrepreneurial world. And this is pretty much due to the economy crashing years ago, to where we had to become our own boss. We had to become an entrepreneur to stay afloat. I get that part. However, though, what throws me off is that there's a lot of people who are bosses that really can't handle being a boss. So my question to everyone in this episode is, can you handle being a boss? Everyone wants to be a boss, but they really can't be an employee. What a lot of people need to realize is that when you are your own boss or an entrepreneur, you are your first employee. You are the one that's running the day-to-day operation of the business. You know, if you have a design company, you're probably the one doing all the designs at first. You are the employee. Your boss is your client. Oh, you guys didn't think about that, huh? Everybody wants to be a boss, but you have to master being an employee. And if you quote unquote work for yourself, guess who's your boss? Your client. Your client is your boss. You don't work 8 hours. That's another misconception. You don't work a 9 to 5 when you are working, when you're working for yourself. You don't clock out at 5 o'clock and then go home and enjoy the rest of the night with your family. No. Sometimes you working 10 to 16 hours as your own boss. Okay? To be an effective boss, you got to get your hands dirty. You know, you have to get your hands dirty. Like I said, you are your first employee. So you got to get your hands dirty. You're the one that's actually doing the work. Sometimes you're the one mowing the lawn, taking the trash out, cleaning the toilets of your own establishment until you're able to be able to afford to outsource or hire someone to do those things. But like I said, you are the first employee. So you really can't be a boss unless you can really be an employee. You can't teach someone how to run a business. Okay, I don't care what they say. And remember, I've been to business school. You know, I have the degrees from business school, a business degree. You can teach them about business, but you can't teach someone how to run a business if you actually haven't ran a business. Sometimes you have to just do trial and error. There's not that much book smart and books out there. Coming from someone that's obsessed with business, there's not enough books out there that's going to teach you how to run the business. You actually have to do it. Okay, you really have to do it. Perfect example of someone who became their own boss, but they had to fall back and become an employee first to bring it all together is one of my idols, Berry Gordy. Berry Gordy. He did not pop out the womb with Motown. Okay. There was a documentary on Showtime that I was watching called Hitsville. And it was the story or the making of Motown. And he said in the documentary that he had to fall back and take a job at Ford Motor Company on the assembly line. And that's where he was able to perfect his craft at songwriting. He saw how different parts, the car was being made at different stations. Like, okay, this station is where they put the door on. This station, then that piece went over here to this station, and this is where they put the engine in. And then this station is where they put this in. And then at the end of the assembly line, they have the vehicle. He took that and modeled his company after that. So he was like, they're doing this with cars, I can do this with artists. You know, we bring artists in. Over here, we have the songwriters. Over here, we have the composers. Over here, we have artist development. Over here, we have wardrobe. Over here, we have the dance component. So he said, I'm going to take this idea and build my company around this model. Even someone like Berry Gordy had to fall back and become an employee in order to refine his craft at songwriting. Now, who would have thought Who would have thought? The Ford Motor Company, building cars, gave him that business model that became so successful for him to where he's a legend. Like, people model their business after him now. Quality control. Guess where guess where they got that name from? From Berry Gordy. One of the stations on Barry's well, I shouldn't call him Barry, Mr. Gordy. One of the stations on Mr. Gordy's quote unquote assembly line within Motown was quality control, where they would sit around a table, listen to the song, and then vote on whether or not this song was a hit. Like, is it something that they should put out and put money behind or no? That station was called quality control. So even labels today are still being inspired by this man who fell back to become an employee and to learn. So sometimes you have to humble yourself. I'm not saying this to rub people the wrong way. I'm not saying this to, turn people off, but it's the truth. Sometimes you have to humble yourself and take a job in order to learn a valuable lesson. Sometimes, let me repeat that. Sometimes you have to humble yourself and take a job in order to learn a valuable lesson. Sometimes you will need to bake or cook a little bit. Sometimes you got to stay in the oven just a little bit longer before you're done. Okay. So definitely keep that in mind. So for all you entrepreneurs out there, if you guys are having a hard time with your business, okay, don't just take a job because you need the money. Okay. Take something that's going to actually help you and develop you into a better employee for your own business, or to help you become a better boss in your own business. So with that being said, thank y'all for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all next week.